So delaying it one, this morning we're having a quarterly meeting for the Employment Committee with TNCO, and we have a special guest this morning, Mr. Jeremy Norden Paul and his team to discuss the employment new payment plan structure that they're coming out with. So if everyone is ready, we'll just let Mr. Jeremy Norden get started.
Hey, thanks, Lee. It's good to see you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. And I'm also here with two of my awesome colleagues, Alex Gaughan and Carrie Brna. So we're going to do kind of a co-presentation and co-discussion. But first, I think I probably know most of you, but if I haven't met you before, I'm Jeremy Norden Paul, Director of Program Innovation at DDA. I might have worked with you in one of my other roles at what was then DIDD when I was the employment director. And I got my start in this field as a job coach and job developer. So I love the opportunity to come talk to you about employment services. Um, and we saw your questions ahead of time. We tried to take those questions and develop it into it's kind of a rough presentation. We went back and looked at some of the presentations we've done recently and pulled together a few pieces that we think will address your questions, even if it's not word for word. But if we miss something or we misinterpret, we can have any kind of discussion that you want to have. So we've got kind of like maybe 8 or 9 basic slides that we wanted to share with you just by way of information sharing, and then stop there and see what questions you have or what discussion you want to have. Does that sound okay? But before I do that, because I don't want it to, I don't want to forget to do this later. I'm going to ask Carrie and then Alex to introduce themselves as well. Carrie?
Thanks, Jeremy. Good morning, everybody. I'm Carrie Brna. I am DDA's Employment Director. Alex?
Morning, everybody. Happy to be here. I am Alex Gaughan. I am the Director of Program Alignment and Development at DDA.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, Alex. So I think between the three of us, we should be able to address your questions. Um, I don't have them right in front of me, but I remember one of the questions was around the Shift training and accreditations that DDA has developed in partnership with Shift. I know there was also a question about VBP or value-based payment efforts and how they're connected. And so this is a great question, one we love talking about. As usual, there's parts of it that are easy to address, and then there's parts of it that are more complicated and uncertain. So we're just going to start at the beginning and share what we think will be helpful, and hopefully we'll cover all of that. So I'm going to share my screen in just a second. Lee, I'm assuming that I'm able to share. Let me just double check. There we go. I think it's working. Okay, let me know once you can see this, and I'll put it into full screen mode.
We can see it.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. Okay, so some of you might have seen this at our tech summit in the fall, and you're probably wondering, why are you here talking about enabling technology? We're an employment committee, but you can probably connect the dots and see how it's really all interconnected, and how within program innovation, when we talk about employment innovation, employment accreditation, it is just joined at the hip with enabling technology and a lot of other innovative programs that we do. So in order to kind of tell the full story and explain reasons why we do certain things, it is helpful to start from a place of talking about enabling technology, because it is our original innovation program dating back to 2018. And what we've seen over those years is just an explosion in the number of people in our waiver services who are using enabling technology as a service. Um, it started off very small back in 2018. You probably remember this. It was just like it was a pilot. It was, hey, let's pick a few people, let's see how this works, see what we learn. And it had a kind of a slow and steady start. And really, it was probably around 2021, 2022 when things started exponentially increasing. There's a lot of reasons for this. I won't get into all of that, but there's truly a strategic approach to how DDA and its partners have tried to create policies and protocols and done various training and capacity building with our providers and ISCs and even internally with our own staff. And so we've done a lot, but over the years, we've seen a dramatic increase in enabling technology. So to us, this kind of, sometimes there's a question that gets tossed around, and it's a good one, which is it all worth it? We're doing a lot of training. We're spending a lot of time, resources in pursuing these accreditations and doing the training and making sure that we hire the best. And I think most of us understand that that's a good thing. But sometimes we probably wonder, is it worth it? Is anything different because we're doing all that stuff? And the answer is yes, unquestionably. Just even if you look in terms of basic utilization of enabling technology, you can see that those efforts are leading to more people, significantly more people, using technology, being more independent, and that has ripple effects in other areas of their life, including employment. So, and these are just some data points that we've analyzed recently that kind of help emphasize that point, that it is worth it because due to all of your efforts and our efforts, we're seeing people experience different outcomes. We're seeing people doing more things more often. So for example, if there's a provider, if there's a person being supported by a provider that has Shift Tech First accreditation, that person is 2.6 times more likely to be using enabling technology than if they're being supported by a provider that's not Shift Tech First accredited. So that's a major difference to say that if they go to one provider that has that accreditation for various reasons, they're extremely likely to be using enabling technology versus not. And then even if you look at things like CQL, now we don't, we're very much invested in CQL as an agency. We're, I think, the only state in the country still with a state agency that's CQL accredited. So obviously we spend a lot of time and money on that, but we don't directly pay for those costs for providers. But we do see that if there's a CQL accredited provider, they are 1.3 times more likely to be using enabling technology. So even just being CQL certified, it makes sense, right? You're more person-centered, you're more intentional, you're planning for what people really want and need, and there's a greater likelihood that that's going to lead to people choosing enabling technology to be more independent. In terms of dollars and cents, this is information that isn't always the front of the story. When we're talking with the people we support, families, providers, we tend to focus on their experience and their success and their stories and their challenges, as it should be. But we also have policymakers and budget directors that we have to convince this is important. So we do have to analyze the cost numbers, the investment, the return on investment, and the savings. And so we recently did some analysis that shows that during the first year of somebody using enabling technology, there's a 13.5 return on investment during that first year. That means that if you spend $1 on someone to purchase or procure enabling technology, there'll be a $13.50 cost avoidance, or sometimes people will say savings, but really what it is it's a cost avoidance for that same person, which is a major impact because they're living the life they want to live. They're using the services they want to use. They're more independent in various areas of their life. They're using fewer overall waiver services, which means that there's more resources available for the state as a whole. So really, it's a win-win-win. And just based on current utilization, which is growing every day, current utilization, that amounts to almost $2 million in cost avoidance of Medicaid spending. So again, this is stuff that we don't talk about all that often, but to answer the question, is it worth it? Is it working for the people? Is it working for providers? Is it working for the state? It's clear that it's a win-win-win situation across the board. Here's a few more data points just to kind of start making the connection with employment. So if somebody is using enabling technology, they're twice as likely to be employed. And that's probably not a surprise. People who are using enabling technology, who have taken that step to be more independent, to assert greater independence and control over their life, are more likely to choose employment and to have a job and to be successful in that job. So we see that interconnection there. Also, if somebody's employed, they're 2.5 times more likely to be using enabling technology. So that's the other side of that coin. The message here is that employment and enabling technology are totally interconnected, which means that when we invest in employment or when we invest in enabling technology, we're investing in people's quality of life and their independence. And that's very clear. Let's see here. A lot of you are probably aware, and Carrie's going to talk about this in a minute, but if people who are being supported by the Shift Employment First accredited providers are almost twice as likely to be employed. So clearly there's a difference in the kind of support and the kind of service providers are delivering in order to help people be more likely to be employed. And back to CQL, people are also almost twice as likely to be employed if they're supported by a CQL provider. So I know that was a lot of data, a lot of numbers, but the takeaway message is just that it matters and it's having an impact and it's working. And thanks to your contributions and your hard work and the investments from DDA and the state, we're seeing a seismic shift in how we provide services, how we support people, and as a result, the outcomes that we're seeing. Carrie's going to talk more about the Employment First accreditation, but I want to put this question out there for us to address later, which is another very logical question that we get asked a lot, which is it sustainable? We can see that it's working. It's obviously good. It's helping people. They're successful, but can we sustain it in terms of money, time, effort? Is the money going to dry up? Is the state going to back away from it at any point? So that's a very valid question, and toward the end of this presentation, we'll talk more about our VBP efforts and what the future of this might look like. But first, I would love for Carrie to talk a little bit more about the Employment First accreditation program.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeremy. So I certainly see some familiar names, and some of you all are already have gone through at least some part of this Employment First accreditation program. If you're not fully accredited already, I've seen some head shakes. Okay, so some of this will be review for you all, but for those of you who are not familiar with our SHIFT program, about 3 years ago, we partnered with SHIFT in order to develop the nation's first employment accreditation program. So our purpose was to be able to designate provider agencies as employment first leaders in our states and to arm you all with the knowledge and ability to support people using enabling technology throughout their employment journey. And so some other key partners in this development, we partnered with Vanderbilt University. They served as the SMEs to write the curriculum. And we also utilize a U.S. Department of Labor grant program in order to access national SMEs to help support the program. And so through all that, our goal is obviously to train our staff, to equip them with the skills and tools in order to support people through their employment journey and designate agencies as employment first leaders. Next slide, Jeremy. Okay. So if you're familiar with the Technology First accreditation program, we designed this program to be similar. In the structure, we have different customized learning tracks. We have a fundamentals customized track that's appropriate for all levels at the agencies, specifically focused on our DSPs. We understand that if someone's residential staff doesn't support their employment goals, for example, someone will not be successful at work. And so we really need to instill these principles throughout the entire agency. We develop a job coach and job developer track, and this meets the training certification requirements that we worked with TNCO and the MCOs to establish. And so you can utilize this training to train your job coaches, job developers. And then we went a step further and got our job developer training track ACRE certified. And so they will walk away with that certification. And so that was really exciting and important for especially our credential requirements. We, of course, have the agency leadership track, which is, where the the provider level accreditation will occur. Obviously, that's where kind of all of the hands-on work is going to happen. You're going to work directly with SHIFT, looking at your policies, your funding, your job, org structure, etc., kind of reshaping your agency, all to support employment first. And then we went and we knew that it was really important to include self-advocates in this work. Nothing about us without us is standing strong here. And so we developed a self-advocate credential, and that's going to be released this year. We just went through the pilot of that. And what that is, it's a 30-minute, I think it's like a 30-minute video that comes with accompanying worksheets that it's really to use to support the employment informed choice process, to help people understand what working could look like for them and help them make that decision whether or not they want to explore work. It's interactive, it's fun, it's a really great course, and I would definitely encourage you to use that with the people that you're supporting as you're having those introductory discussions. And again, that'll be released and free for everybody later this year. And so, ultimately, what else is on this slide here? Kind of already went through this, the purpose of why we're trying to instill this program and trying to get as many accredited agencies as possible. But really, we're trying to transform our system into employment first leaders. And we know that, ultimately our job's not done unless everybody who wants to work is supported to do so. And we certainly have a long way to go as a system in order to get more people the opportunity to work, or at least help them make an informed decision as to whether or not work is appropriate for them. And so this course will hopefully equip your staff, equip you as leaders in order to achieve those goals. Next slide, Jeremy. So this is just another kind of layout of the different course level work. I think I already kind of covered this, so we don't have to spend too much time on this here, but this is just kind of a layout of how the courses work. The courses do build on each other, with the exception of that leadership course. We aren't expecting our leaders to be taking the job coach and job developer coursework. You go from the foundational level straight to the leadership work. But you kind of pick the track that's most appropriate for whomever you're supporting. Next slide, Jeremy. All right, so this is how, Okay, so, similar to Technology First, we are offering scholarships. So if you haven't already taken the opportunity to do so, we right now have different scholarship levels available. We are providing individual professional scholarships. So if you just need to get someone ACRE certified to start delivering services, for example, you could come to us and apply for the individual staff to go through that coursework, and the DDA scholarship is able to cover it. We are also offering scholarships to achieve full agency level accreditation. And so you kind of would, what's I would recommend is speaking to Shift and kind of identifying what's best for your agency at this time. Some agencies are ready to go straight into the accreditation. Some, it's best to build on education first and then kind of slow walk into the accreditation. And Shift's really good at identifying, where you are along your path and how to help you best achieve your goals. We do have information on this slide about how to review the different course options and apply for the scholarship. I'm happy to share that with anybody who'd like to get, personally emailed to them as well. But hopefully we're making it pretty easy for you all to achieve those goals and to get your staff trained, by covering the costs for you all. Next slide. And I think I had just went through this, Jeremy. I was just talking about the different organization and kind of what it covers. Yeah, I don't think that's it. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Alex. And if there's any questions about the accreditation or the scholarships, definitely reach out to me directly. And I'd be happy to speak with anybody one-on-one. Thank you.
And I'll just add that in addition to the Employment First, we continue to have grants for Technology First programs as well. And we can, we're just about to re-up our scholarship fund for that for fiscal year 27. So over the past few years, we've really tried hard to provide funding for every single applicant that meets the criteria and submits a good application. Don't quote me on this, but I don't think that we've turned anyone away for lack of funds. We've always found a way to make it work. So if this is something you're interested in, whether it's employment and or technology, first-time accreditation, reaccreditation, or if it's one of those individual level certifications, just let us know because there's money on the table and we definitely don't want to leave any there. Okay, Alex, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah, go ahead, Troy.
Carrie, I was curious to know regarding the leadership training that you referenced earlier, and we have a manager who is already ACRE Pro certified. Does that meet the criteria expected for that requirement?
That's a really good question. So, Troy, you are in a good position in that your staff member holds that pro certification because that's a leadership requirement per the TNCO, right? However, that is different than this leadership certification because the leadership certification is where the agency level accreditation will occur. So that's where you're working with Shift to, like I mentioned, rewrite your policies, work on your org chart, your funding, etc., to support accreditation. And that's, it takes several months to do that type of work, and it's a little bit more hands-on with Shift and your agency. So those two are separate, but both valuable in different ways. Because like I said, TNCO is looking for that manager certification, right? We're doing a big audit right now. MCOs have probably contacted you to make sure someone's trained on that level. So you're in a good position. But if you'd like to go a step further and work on the agency level transformation, that would be the leadership Shift training. Is that clear?
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that's clear. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've been working on with a small group. A handful of TNCO providers are on there, so I'm sure you all have heard buzzes about it. So when we started the original process towards integration, working with the MCOs in TNCare to really bring as much alignment as possible to the 1915C program as well as the ECF program. And part of that was to align where we could in all ways, and then ultimately be able to move the network into an outcomes-based model, a value-based payment reformation. And so we've been working with a small group to kind of keep building on that. We haven't moved forward with integration. TNCare ultimately decided it wasn't worth it to keep pursuing the full integration amendment, since we were able to integrate billing and be able to get that tax revenue and be able to align in the other ways necessary. And so we've decided to keep our foot on the pedal as we continue working towards what's next for the network, what's next for our programs. And so we've been working with a small group of how do we really get into this value-based payment reformation and ultimately be able to see an outcomes-based model that incentivizes outcome achievement for people that we all support. So what we've been working on, and this is just a really high level kind of explanation because we haven't finalized everything yet to get into the details of it. But what we've been looking at for a pilot is to kind of kick it off by looking at those that might be considered transformative, setting a handful of standards based on skill acquisition through things like employment first, tech first, person-centered practices through CQL, CARF, and then NADSP, looking at the e-badges and understanding, how all of that builds to the outcomes and the early data that Jeremy shared earlier that we're starting to see show a difference in providers who are really being able to look forward and understand the impacts of having highly skilled and trained staff. So looking in this pilot, helping agencies understand how to get there to be able to meet outcomes more consistently for people and be able to help people live the lives they envision for themselves. We're looking at establishing an incentive opportunity for providers that are meeting the skill acquisition criteria, as well as working on a data element that would allow us to start testing outcome models. So looking at various outcomes, particularly within pillars of transformation. So looking at employment, person-centeredness, and enabling technology, but wanting to also consider the opportunities to expand that as we continue growing, and looking at outcomes that would be achievable regardless of where you are in services. So perhaps there are some behavioral outcomes to bring in. Perhaps there are some more clinical-based ones that are already tested through the nursing facilities outcomes models and hospital outcome models. So there's a lot of quantitative data that we can look at as we want to measure outcome achievement, but quantitative data doesn't give us the full picture. So we're also looking at how do we improve that qualitative data that really tells the story of what the impact to and for the person is showing. Are they living a happier life? Are they being able to achieve the goals they want for themselves? Are they satisfied with where things are going? And so really understanding how do we tell that narrative in the best way possible to understand that the services that are being delivered are what the people need and want. And the way that we're, setting up plans and being able to put the right services in place are really giving them the greatest opportunity for their lives. So that's kind of where we're at. We're working with a group called the Direct Care Workforce Strategy Center. We're part of a cohort. We were accepted into the cohort for this year, and it runs through, I believe, August or September. They just extended us a couple of months. So we're excited to keep working with them. For those of you that have been around for a while, Lisa Mills, who formerly was at TNCO under Patty, she is one of the subject matter experts working with us to help fine tune the requirements that would help get this pilot up and running. And we're working with TNCO to better understand where those bridges might be made to help the MCOs and ECF be a participant in this, as much as the 1915C program, which is obviously where DDA has more control over the operations. And so we're really working in the weeds of things on those particular requirements and making sure that we have a package that's going to meet everybody's best interest. And as soon as we have more specific information to share about how the structure will be and the exact requirements that will lead us to into this pilot phase and kind of what the timeline moves from there, from pilot to implementation of further stages. Be happy to share further, but that is what we're working on. And I know that you've probably all heard bits and pieces from the TNCO counterparts or other providers that are participating in our work group. But we put in a lot of effort over the last 2 years to develop a really great framework. And I'm really excited to see it come to fruition, and looking forward to being able to present more as we have those final details developed. So that is all I have on that information. So Jeremy, I will kick it back to you. Oh, I guess we could briefly talk about this slide as well. This is just a quick slide that talks about impacts agencies who are already going into these transformative practices are seeing. So those of you that are familiar with core services and Emory Valley, this is just kind of a summary of impacts they're seeing, both for the people that they support as well as for their workforce. So they're seeing drastic improvements regarding, retention, vacancy rates, but they're also seeing really great outcomes for people being employed, lessened crisis events, etc. The list goes on. So this is just a quick synopsis that each of them have said regarding their work towards transformative status. And then I think, do we have one more slide that just talks about, these are just all the elements that will go into the VVP model in the end. So working on that skill acquisition, enhancing our data collection methodologies, analyzing data in a different way than we are today to really understand, like I said, the outcome in a way that measures the importance to and for the person, as well as that quantitative component that kind of marries into the service, and then being able to report on those achievements. So now I'll kick it back to you, Jeremy, I think.
Thanks, Alex and Carrie. So Lee and the rest of the committee, that was our initial presentation. Hopefully it addressed some of the initial questions that you had, but we're here to answer any follow-up questions or have any discussion you'd like to have.
I have a question, and I apologize, Lee, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I apologize if this was covered because another meeting ran over. But regarding the value-based payments, do we have like the rates or structure of how that's going to look after accreditation versus now?
Not at this time.
Okay. But is that forthcoming?
Yeah,
I just heard, is that accurate? I've heard that once you are shipped accredited and DDA makes some change, then it will result in higher rates for services. So is that accurate or not?
So we're working on fine-tuning it. The way that we worked on it with the work group was specific to 1915C, and we are trying to find bridges to build in ECF as well. And so I don't have specifics right now on what the funding methodology would be, and that would impact the payment methodology. So how that whether it's built into a rate structure versus within like direct provider payments. For instance, using similarly to the MCO's funding opportunity, 50 million over 5 years, that structure could be utilized if we're able to use MCO directed payment methods. We can't do that in 1915C without a waiver amendment. So I don't have the final details yet. It really comes down to ultimately where we get to with TNCO on how we can build in a method for both programs and where that funding comes from. So if it comes from shared savings for 1915C, if it's handled by DDA, it has to be done within the waiver. So it would have to be an enhanced service rate. Whereas the MCOs have more flexibility within their capabilities of structure of the 1115 program to do direct provider payments like the funding opportunities that they're doing right now for both HCBS and MFP. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I am still sad to hear that the alignment didn't work, because now, this is another example of us, having to comply with two different sets of requirements. But that's okay. Thank you for the answer, and we'll just be patient on that.
Yep, absolutely. We're doing our best to see if we can get married on that one. So I promise you, it's our goal to get us aligned on that as well. And we have stressed that importance to TNCO as we continue navigating how to move forward in this.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
This is Lee. I did have a question, but I think you answered it when you said that you're trying to get in line with ECF. So they will kind of like go together for us, ECF and DDA.
I don't have an answer yet. The way we developed it was specific to 1915C, but it easily can be married or replicated in the ECF program. TNCO, in our conversations we are having with them right now, is how do we make it for both? How do we get the MCOs and the ECF program as aligned in this as possible? If we could do it using the MCO's payment methodology like they're doing with the funding opportunities, then great. That's available to all providers right now anyway. So can we tap into a same methodology there? And that way it would be handled. If you were an ECF and 1915C provider, your payment would probably all be within one, right? It doesn't make a difference at that point which program you're in if it's handled that way, versus if it has to be implemented kind of separately in two different methods, the 1915C would require an enhanced rate where the MCOs have that direct provider payment flexibility. So we're still hoping we can get there. And TNCO has been entertaining a lot of really great, thoughtful conversation around how do we make it work for both in terms of priorities. And so that's where we're at right now in fine-tuning the requirements to see where we can get to, hopefully to bring both programs in and be as aligned as possible in the structure of it.
Okay. I think it would be really important that they do get them to line in together, because we do know that the DDA population is aging out as it relates to growth, so far as employment. So
Yep.
It'd be a key factor to try to make both of them work. So
Absolutely.
I had a quick question. And actually, before I ask my question, I would say I'm an ordained minister. I'll be glad to perform that marriage ceremony whenever y'all get ready. We're waiting on that.
Sounds great.
I did want to ask, with this value-based payment program, is this something that you foresee that's going to be a requirement in the future that every agency needs to follow? Or is this just going to be, it's an optional thing that those that participate will have a benefit of better rates and things?
Yes, that would be how it'd be designed. So the incentive would be, if you are performing at a level that's meeting outcomes, you have an opportunity to get that enhanced incentive. So the base rates would stay the same and everything would be in addition to the base rate.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
are there any more questions?
I get the question I have is just, I guess, overarching the end goal of this is, just to put it in simplicity, is to have better, I guess, quality of services Is that what the whole purpose behind this is to reach, providers to have better quality services at the end of the day? Is that kind of the push on this, or how would you word that in different ways? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think quality is definitely an element that helps, but it's specific to, I think, more so in that person-centered practice, right? Really helping providers and staff of all degree understand the value and the importance of really understanding the person's goals, kind of what they want to achieve, and not just being, traditionally we have held a caretaker role, right? Let's get beyond caretaker, especially, and that's where I wholly agree for the sentiments on ECF being a really high value here, right? Because for new people coming in, how do we deliver the most impactful service at that time that's really going to enhance the ability for them to live independently, for them to have more community engagement, be a more valued member of their society, if that's what they want. Now, there will always be people who need more residential-based care in terms of clinical-based care, or bedridden, things like that. And we want to make sure that that value and that understanding of how do we still respect and honor their person-centeredness in terms of what would be goals that would be good for them to help enhance the value of their life. So yes, quality is accurate, but it's quality in that person-centeredness, and especially really understanding the value of letting the person have their voice as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else?
We have a quiz that we can send out just to make sure everybody was fully paying attention, and I'm just kidding. No, we're really happy to address any more questions that are right now, or if you think of any in the future, through email or even coming back. And kind of like I said at the beginning, some parts of this are very straightforward, and then some parts of it are, depending on what happens with our conversations with TNCO, there's a lot that's very complex and a little bit uncertain right now, but we're trying to be as transparent as we can be. And sometimes it's hard to reach all of our different folks that different audiences. So I was really happy when you reached out, because even though we have been working very closely with TNCO, I know that there's, various groups within TNCO, and sometimes information may or may not always make it to all the people who need it. So I was just happy when you reached out, and don't hesitate to do that in the future.
Well, thank you very much. Troy, do you got a question?
No, I was just going to simply thank the DDA team for taking time to meet with us. This was a great presentation, and it'll help as we move forward. And I'm always curious about the slide deck that was used. Is that available to the providers or to TNCO?
I don't have any issue sharing it because it's all stuff that we've presented before. Alex, are you good with the?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So I can send that to you, Troy. Would that be the best?
That'd be great. I'll get it to everyone.
Okay. Sounds
Thank
good.
you. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.